Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bet It Right show in conjunction with betitright.com, which, as you know by now, is a brand new website that brings the football data to your door. And each week we'll update you on the key numbers and metrics that you can use to help you show off in front of your mates and allow you to bet better. So make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast and sign up with us at betitright.com. Dean Selvey is with me as always, and Dean, the transfer window has been done and dusted. Who did well? Who's come out of it badly? How do you assess it?
I just want to send my severe condolences to everybody in Newcastle.
Oh no, that bad?
I just don't get it. Eddie Howe's been given a pot of money and he's decided that the best way to spend that money is to spend 30 million on a 30-year-old Chris Wood, 15 million, 13 million on a 29-year-old Dan Burn, Matt Targett, Kieran Trippier. Obviously, Guimaraes is an exciting signing, but I just don't understand. I mean, help me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think they've had a shocker.
I'd be interested in what Newcastle fans made of it, because a lot of traders, when they were pricing up, will Newcastle go down or stay up, kind of didn't really know how to price it up because they had no idea how January's transfer window would go. Now, Kieran Trippier, as we know, is an incredibly talented footballer. He's had a hugely successful career. Guimaraes is, by all accounts, a very talented footballer who's had a decent career. But Matt Targett, Dan Burn, Chris Wood, they wouldn't scream out as sort of names that come when this takeover happened. Newcastle fans would probably put at the top of the list of players they would want. So I'd be interested to find out what Newcastle fans make of it. Do you think they'll stay up?
I look at the attacking players in the squad and I think they should stay up, but then defensively they've been terrible, and I just don't think Dan Burn at centre-half is going to be an answer to that. Mobility-wise, he struggles. I do think Kieran Trippier, like I said, is a great footballer. He's 31, but I think there's still a lot left in him. And Matt Targett, his second choice at Villa, has struggled in 1v1 duels. It just depends what Eddie Howe's going to do with it. Hey, come May, June time, I may have to eat my words, but right now I think it looks it doesn't look great for them.
Who's done well then? Newcastle's done badly. Who've done well?
The two sides that I'm looking forward to seeing is Juventus in Italy and Everton. Go on the Toffees in the Premier League. Juve have signed Dusan Vlahovic for 80 million and Denis Zakaria from Mönchengladbach for 8 million, which I think is an absolute steal. Only 18 months ago, people were talking 30, 40 million. He's had a few injuries, but I still think he's an excellent central midfielder. And obviously, Donny van der Beek needs to restart his career. Dele Alli, still only 25 years old, which is bizarre. It seems like he's been around forever. And they both need to restart and go into a club that needs a restart. So I think it could be an absolute car crash or it could be a revelation.
Yeah, I think you'd know more as an Everton fan, perhaps, but I think that with a new manager in there, having a bit of new blood in terms of the playing squad is kind of needed, and you've got people who will be very keen, I think, to prove a point, particularly in Donny van der Beek's case.
Yeah, because he's had so much, bad press, and everyone's saying why is Solskjaer not playing him, and memes and pictures of him sat on the bench looking all sad, and he gets a 1 minute and 5 minutes, and obviously Dele Alli just didn't really sit well with Conte and played really well under Pochettino. Is now going to be managed by a midfield legend who was well known for scoring, Chelsea's record goal scorer, scoring goals from midfield. So you'd like to think that Van der Beek and Dele Alli will actually fit really well with Lampard. Yeah,
it was interesting in Dele Alli's sort of thanks to the fans Instagram message. He didn't mention Mourinho, Conte or Nuno, only singled out Pochettino to thank him for what he did to his career. We asked you on Twitter at the BIR Insights page what you thought. Adam says, as a United fan, it's the worst window in recent history. Madeline Tudor says, best signing is Luis Diaz to Liverpool from Porto. Ramsey to Rangers is the worst, although Ali McCoy would disagree with you. And Tottenham, well, with Kulusevski and Bentancur, two players you'd know well, Dean.
Yeah.
And then also says would have liked to strike at Arsenal, who were rumoured to be going for, I think, about 3 or 4 big names, including Vlahovic, and that would have been a sort of marquee signing, but didn't get anyone. Wrexham has spent more than Arsenal. What do you say? Sort of thoughts from our listeners there?
Well, United have got a history of being really good and bad in the window. Bruno Fernandes, 2020. Nemanja Vidic, 2006. Obviously turned out to be a United legend. Or just a very unknown centre-back playing for Spartak Moscow at the time. And then they spent a lot of money on Alexis Sanchez. So they've a mixture. Do they need reinforcements? It's still early days with Rangnick. So maybe actually he thought, I don't need them. The Spurs signings, Kulusevski, he was unbelievable on loan at Parma. Big money move from Atalanta, actually, into Juve. Didn't really work out. Can be a little bit lazy out of possession. Lefty, loves to dribble. But the two sides of his game don't match up. Bentancur, solid centre midfielder, fits right in with Antonio Conte. And Luis Diaz at Liverpool, obviously a really exciting player to come into the Prem. Does that mean the end of Mo Salah? Is this going to be, Salah to a big club in the summer? And at 29, it's probably the last chance they've got to cash in on him. His value is probably at its max right now.
Yeah, there's been lots of back and forth with contract negotiations and what have you. Okay, that's the transfer window done. Look out for our next discussion point for next week's show. We'll post that on our BIR Insights page. There's also the prompts page. But don't forget that all the data that we're talking about or about to talk about is at betitright.com. It's extensive. It's really, really important, whatever level of football fan you are. But join us at betitright.com and you can find out everything that we're about to say is there at your fingertips as well. And when I say everything we're about to say, I mean everything Dean is about to say, because we are heading into the tactics room. Dean, what's the game in focus this week, mate?
So I looked at all the fixtures, and it's a bit of a weird one, right? Because it's the winter break that's back after the COVID year. But you've got some players that have been away on their holidays, posting on Instagram, having a great time. You've got some players in South America playing World Cup qualifiers. You've got some players in AFCON, that are still there now into the semi-finals and finals. So I was looking at it thinking, it's really weird, right? We're talking about games that are happening on next Thursday, and there's this weird kind of empty patch. And I don't know how squads are going to be, like, trying to mash that all together. A few people have been having a few cocktails. A few people have been, flying. So I went for the Wolves versus Arsenal game. That's the Tactics Room chat today. And two very different sides form-wise coming into this. You've got Wolves, 5 games unbeaten, looking very, very solid, kind of creeping up the table slowly. And you've got Arsenal losing to Forest in the Cup, losing to Liverpool in the EFL Cup, and obviously drawing 0-0 with Burnley and having the North London derby postponed. So straight off the bat, I just looked at it and thought, right, tactically, this is actually a really good matchup. Both teams like to try and get the ball into a similar area on the pitch. They want to play outside central midfielders and to try and exploit that space in what now people talk to as kind of the half spaces or the inside pockets. But Wolves get there one way and Arsenal get there a different way. So Wolves tend to play through at the back, use their wing backs high to play flatter passes into those areas to get Trincao and those players Podence inside the pockets. And then you've got Arsenal that like to play it from more central areas, playing from their centre midfielders into those smaller pockets for Smith Rowe and Odegaard playing narrow. So what it is going to be a really tactical battle to see how those two teams set up against each other and try to exploit almost the same area but in a different way. So it's an interesting one for us to look at from a tactical angle for sure.
The other thing as well is that I know his numbers in terms of goals, assists weren't great, and he's very divisive. But Adama Traore's gone; he's at Barcelona on loan, so that takes away one, I guess, tactical discussion point within the Arteta camp as to how he's going to sort of negate that threat. So how do you think Arteta be setting up to best try and break through what has, according to the stats, been quite a hard defence to break through in Wolves?
Yeah, well, again, I gave my commiserations to Newcastle earlier. I'm also going to give my commiserations to any shop that sells baby oil in and around Wolverhampton, because the stock prices of Johnson & Johnson, Exactly. We're not going to see that anymore, greasing up. But I mean, he's gone to Barca. Arsenal have lost. Aubameyang to Barca, I say lost. I mean, they paid him £7 million to leave. I wish someone would pay me £7 million to leave my job. No disrespect, I love the show, but if anyone out there wants to give me 7 million, I'm on my way. But yeah, the way that Arteta will have to do it is, it really depends on, and it's a little bit the same for both teams. Now, Wolves' problem is that they sometimes play 3-4-3. Now, recently they've played 3 midfield with Moutinho, Dendoncker, and Neves. Now, that would be better to defend against Arsenal because it gives them more width in central areas, as opposed to when they play 3-4-3. The 2 centre midfielders, Neves, Dendoncker, Moutinho, Dendoncker, can get exposed outside of them with the wide forwards recovery. So that's kind of going to be the battle there. But then also Arsenal, with Partey and Xhaka being, suspended, and they played Lokonga on his own in a 1 and a 2. So if he plays as a 1, then again the space is outside him there for Podence, for Silva, for Trincao to play in those pockets is going to be really interesting to see. So talking to people, talking out there to Bet It Right users, this will be a game where you really need to look and wait to see. Are Wolves playing 2 in midfield? Are Arsenal playing a 1 and a 2 or a 2 and a 1? A 2 and a 1 gives them a little bit more protection. A 1 and a 2, they could be a little bit more exposed in those inside pockets. But the really interesting thing in this game for me is, with Wolves' momentum, their performance, unbeaten in 5 games, Arsenal coming into this performing badly. If Wolves can score first, they are really, really good at locking games off. So they'll go into that deeper 5-4-1. They'll really lock it off. They aren't a team to go chasing games, which is why a lot of their games have been unders. And I think that they could be a really hard team to break down if they can get ahead in this, or take it into that 60-minute mark when it's even up.
I don't know whether this is something that I've just sort of observed and am incorrect in my observation. Obviously, I could head to betitright.com and find out very easily. But are Arsenal a much better team at home than they are away? That's one of the impressions I get from watching them. Yeah,
massively. Their metrics at home against away are just a complete contrast. The XG and XG conceded away from home they're up towards the 2, and 1.87 I think on the goals. And Wolves have got excellent defending metrics, like you mentioned earlier, at home this season. So it really is a team that struggle away against a team that are comfortable at home. And like I said, given the momentum moving into this game, I'd have to be on the Wolves side. And that leads to the next point there about any potential bets for this game. Both teams will want to try and control possession. Both teams can counter-attack. Both teams want to get into similar positions, so that tactical battle. My first thought was maybe on the underside for the goal line, but I do think this is a game that will go off at maybe 2.25 or even 2 if the market moves. So my bet would be to go into the handicap market, and I would take Wolves. They are around plus a quarter at the moment, which is about even money. And if you wanted to take them on plus half a goal, you'd get around 1.7 at the current prices. So I would go for Wolves to squeeze out a draw and win on the handicap.
Okay, thanks for that. That's Wolves versus Arsenal, which is the discussion point in the tactics room. There is a very interesting game which might have a slightly different tactical makeup to it in the Premier League, also on the Thursday. So you've got plenty of time from listening to this in order to do your own research into the games as well. Both games we're speaking about now are on Thursday. So in around about 5-6 days' time, depending on when you're listening to this. Leicester versus Liverpool, or should I say Liverpool versus Leicester. Klopp versus Rodgers, 2 teams that like to score goals and 2 teams that can concede goals as well. So how are we looking for this game, Dean?
Well, first things first, I think that Robert Huth and Wes Morgan are going to get a call from Brendan Rodgers just to see if they can suit up, stick on a shirt, because Leicester are struggling defensively right now. The return fixture in this game was a Leicester 1-0 win. Ademola Lookman scored. And that was Liverpool's last defeat, actually, in 17 games in all competitions. So that'll be on Klopp's mind coming in. But, Liverpool battered them that day. And there's a few little interesting things for Bet It Right users to be thinking about going into this game. On the Liverpool side, Salah and Mane, both into the semi-finals of AFCON. Are they going to be coming back? They have massive XG value to Liverpool. I think only Jota can get into that group with those 2 players. So they are huge. Will the new signing start, or will he go with Oxlade-Chamberlain, Jota and Firmino like he did recently? Now, can Luis Diaz just come straight in? he's been on national team duty this weekend with Colombia, and this is what I was talking about. There's all these kind of moving parts coming into these Thursday games, which is going to be really interesting for people that want to get their bets on. Now, on the Leicester side of things, they've been playing 3-5-2. They've been playing 4-2-3-1. You've got Chowdhury playing centre half. Even Vestergaard got a run out, which is, any sort of pace or dynamism around him. It's like I've seen, the proverbial milk turn quicker than our friend Yannick Vestergaard. So it's really one where, does Seamus play with Vestergaard? Does he play with Chowdhury? They play a back three. Indeed, he's back from AFCON. Does he play? Daniel Amarty's been playing. So there's loads of mining parts. So when people are looking at the market on this game, at the moment, Liverpool are minus 1.75, which for me, against Leicester, I was expecting it to be around 1.25, 1.5 at a push. So I think it's a quarter to half a goal, reflecting the fact that Leicester are so open, especially in transition. And at Liverpool, they will go bang, bang, straight from the first minute. But it's really down, is Salah and Mane back? Have the market already priced them in as being back and playing? If not, then maybe there's maybe that's a little bit overpriced at the moment. But Leicester have, they've conceded an average of 2.1 xG and 1.85 goals. Liverpool are averaging 2.6 goals from 2.6 xG. You can't get more predictive than that. They're number 1 and number 2 across all attacking metrics in the league. So, but again, that is Salah and Mane. Are they back? So it's one of those ones where the Bet It Right users need to be using the website, looking at the starting 11, looking at players potentially coming in, tweaking their teams for FPL, for bets, and really making use of the site. This is why we're here.
Okay, time for our European preview now, and there's plenty of interesting games actually across Europe, but one particular one is Serie A, which we'll all be watching, is the Milan derby, and lots of ramifications with this in terms of the title race. Inter at the moment, I think about 1-4, 1-5 to win the title. If they lose and Napoli come back into the picture, and other teams, with Juventus having such a good transfer window, maybe they're too far gone. But this is a really interesting match, not just in terms of the 90 minutes that Milan and Inter will be faced with, but also with the ramifications for Serie A as well, Dean.
Yeah, I still have nightmares about this game. I wake up in the night, crying and screaming, because we had we were on the overs in the first game, and it was 1-1 after 17 minutes. And I guess you don't need to know, how the story finishes.
Yeah.
Inter missed the second penalty before half time, and it finished 1-1, and it was just, I think the line was 2.75, and Inter had 2.5 xG and Milan had 1.25, and it should have been a 4-goal game, 5-goal game, and it was a killer. It was a killer. I still think about it.
Do we move on?
But no. But like you said, Inter, they haven't lost since the 16th of October, which was actually against Inzaghi's old team. I think it was something that we may have covered, and they lost 3-1 that game, and since then they've dropped 4 points at home all season, 2 to Atalanta and 2 to Juventus, and they've been unbelievable. They've conceded 8 goals at home. They've had a fairly quiet window. Robin Gosens coming in from Atalanta, who's an amazing wing back, but he's injured, and Inzaghi's old mate Felipe Caicedo being picked up from Genoa. But they've just been such a monster team at home, and obviously this is home this weekend, right? Home, given that they share the San Siro. But there's only going to be 5,000 fans there, and with this game, obviously the fans have a massive part to play. It's still going to be feisty. It's still going to be high tempo, but just with only 5,000 in the stadium, it could definitely take on a different vibe, I think.
In what sense? Just be one of those behind closed doors sort of games?
Yeah, just what it's like. We talked about it a few weeks ago with COVID. Italy was one of the leagues where you actually saw the goals go up both home and away when the fans weren't in the stadiums, and even when they came back. But for a game like this, the derby, it will still be about the two teams going at it, and I don't think there'll be any problems with that. But if a team are behind, or if there's a controversial call from the referee, or it gets a bit feisty and there's only 5,000, does that change when there's 80,000? But Milan are coming into the game as well. They've been struggling with injuries all season. Centre midfield, centre backs. Simon Kjaer's been out. Tomori's injured. Kalulu's been playing there with Romagnoli, who's kind of old and a little bit slow. Zlatan hurt his Achilles before the break. They think it might not be as bad, but again, he's 40 years old. But that, this could be the battle of the old centre forwards, the old guard. Edin Dzeko, 35, 9 goals in 21 games. Ibrahimovic, 40, 8 goals in 15. So it could be that, and that's another interesting angle for this one.
I think football is going to be like tennis, when Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer just keep winning till they're about 75, and the same with Serie A, when Ibrahimovic is still scoring at like 68. Like the guy in Japan, who's still, I think he's the oldest footballer in the world.
Yeah, what is he, 54 or something?
5, I think. Yeah, he's just signed another contract in like the 3rd tier.
Legend.
I think he looks about 75 as well. Anyway, that's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
When you look at it and you factor who you'd side with, how much? I mean, we have spoken about it before, but a couple of questions. Firstly, how much do you factor in home advantage, which is obviously negated in this instance?
Yeah.
But also, how much are you factoring in Inter's recent dominance? There's been a bit of a break in the season and things like that. Do you see what I mean? How much are you factoring sort of recency bias in a way into your overall impression of the outcome of this match?
Well, Inter Milan are one of the teams in Serie A who have been really consistent in their team selection. They tend to change the wing backs depending on how aggressive they want to be. So if they want to be a little bit more defensive, they tend to play Darmian on one side. If they want to be really aggressive, they'll play Dumfries on one side on the right. Perisic has made the left side his own. Centre halves are always the same. Centre midfielders are always the same. And then up front, they rotate between Lautaro Martinez, Dzeko, Alexis Sanchez, and Joaquim Correa when he was before he got injured. Now, Alexis Sanchez and Martinez have both been on World Cup qualifiers. So again, another little bit to throw in. But they've been so consistent all season, having not lost since October, keeping so many clean sheets, only conceding 8 goals at home. Milan have really struggled at centre forward this year with Ibra, with Giroud. Rebic has been injured. Centre midfield has been in and out with Kessié, with Tonali, with Benacer not really playing. Centre half injuries. Theo Hernandez is outstanding at left back, which is always an outlet for them. But just for consistency, predictive consistency, you look at the numbers that Inter have produced, averaging 2.52 XG at home and 2.41 goals against Milan, who have also done well. Over 2 goals a game, 1.67 XG. And I think this game will be won or lost in midfield. Inter's Barella, Brozovic and Çalhanoğlu versus what is normally a Kessié, Tonali or Reda Krunic has played there a lot this season, and Brahim Diaz, who can be a little bit lightweight in there. That's where the game's going to be won and lost. And also Inter, very good at defending crosses, and Milan, not so much. So if they can get Dzeko in, Perisic off the back post, it's a game that I can see Inter just dominating and continuing that consistency that they've had this season so far.
Okay, bets then, Dean, what are we going with here?
Inter, win and over 2.5. Double bet. Let's go.
And then in other fixtures in Europe, there are a host of really good fixtures actually in Europe. Across Eredivisie, obviously that big game that we've spoken about in Serie A, but you've also got Wolfsburg versus Furth in Bundesliga, and also in League One you've got Lille versus PSG. So it's not just Serie A that we should focus on around Europe.
Yeah, just picked a couple of games really to give Bet It Right users something different. You know, we normally talk about the Championship, the Prem, the kind of bigger leagues, and I thought, oh, let's pick out a couple of teams that maybe we don't talk about as much this week. Now, Zwolle in their Eredivisie, you know, after 18 games, a half point at Christmas, they had 6 points. You know, bottom of the league, and now they've coming after the break. They've won their first 2 games back. They've doubled their points to 12. And, you know, a win could take them out of the bottom 3 for the first time at home to NEC. So, yeah, the little tip there would be for, you know, if you could get Zwolle, draw no bet. But if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, go for the Zwolle win at better than even money. So something a little bit different. Into Germany, like you mentioned, Wolfsburg last year qualified for the Champions League, finishing 4th. The manager, Oliver Glasner, left, went to Eintracht Frankfurt. Mark van Bommel came in, Dutch manager. there tends to be kind of a lot of, I guess, chat about Dutch managers being very strict and very rigid in the way that they play because of the academies that they grow up in. And Wolfsburg have just gone like this season, plummet. They decided to hire a manager. They sacked Mark van Bommel, hired another manager who has a serial kind of loser in Florian Kohfeldt from Werder Bremen, who saved them from relegation, then got them relegated to Bundesliga 2, and then he gets another job in the Bundesliga, which again doesn't really work. And they've no win in the league since November the 6th. Wout Weghorst has just gone to Burnley to replace Chris Wood. 70 goals in 140 games, big shoes to fill. They've brought in Jonas Wind from Copenhagen, so it'll be interesting to see how he fits in. And the team they're playing, Greuther Furth, were promoted from Bundesliga 2 last year, and amazingly, they lost 14 out of their first 15 games this season. And I cover the Bundesliga 2, so I had a real affinity with them. And I just watched them lose and lose and lose and lose and lose and lose. And I thought this could be like the worst team ever to be in, in a top league in Europe. And they lost 2 games back to back, 6-3 and 7-1. And then after that, in the last 6 games, they've got 2 wins, 3 draws and a loss. And they're having somewhat of a kind of, a revitalized season. Wolfsburg going this way, Greuther Furth going that way. But you can still get Greuther Furth +1 on the handicap away from home. So a little outside cheeky bet, Furth +1 on the handicap in Germany.
And what about in Liga?
Well,
PSG?
I mean, PSG. I mean, what? I don't really know what's going on. I don't know if you saw it. They lost to Nice in the cup last week, and someone put a video together of Messi, and they called it a disaster class from the game. And it's kind of him jogging around, trying to play 1v1, everyone tackling him, people commenting saying it's more physical than La Liga, you can't do that here, and kind of all this stuff. And it's like, is he finished? Is this it? Is he gone to the Parc des Princes to just kind of disappear? What do we think?
Wasn't he like that though towards the end of his Barcelona career, where he could either be asked and turn it on and be incredible, or just not be asked and then just that was it.
Well, yeah. I mean, he scored that wonderful goal in the Champions League, and they've got Real Madrid in the knockout phases, and they're out of the French Cup. Weirdly, they do have a higher points per game this season than last, but their metrics across all of the, all the metrics that we look at from data points, they are worse than last season. And Pochettino, well linked with the Manchester United job, clearly doesn't really like it there. Mbappe going to Real Madrid for nothing after they spent 150 million euros on him for a 200 million contract. I don't know. It just all seems to be very, I don't know. It doesn't seem to fit right for me there. And Lille within the league last year, manager leaves, players leave, and now they're down in 11th position. So it's a really odd one, this game. And all their metrics against last season are down except for XG. So it means that they're creating chances, not scoring, but they're conceding more chances, possession, everything else has gone down. So I do think this is a game that actually, when I looked at it, the overs market seems like a realistic one, because I think both teams got nothing to lose. It's like, let's just chuck everything at it, go after it and try and score some goals. So yeah, a little overs bet in Ligue 1.
Love it. Mate, thank you very much for your insight, as always. The fact is that we've had a little winter break, and I always find it incredibly dull when there's not lots of football on, but we are back this weekend, which is...
Well, some winter breaks are better than others. I mean, how's your winter break?
I don't know whether this will break the recording, but my winter break's lovely, Dean. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm on holiday at the moment, but I'm going to be watching a lot of football this weekend on that balcony that you just saw. I
didn't realise that Brighton, the sea in Brighton is so blue. That's amazing.
Dorset, which is just stunning, isn't it? Sandbank looking great.
It is.
Harry Redknapp.
Before we finish this show, I just want to give a big shout out to the hero that is Seamus Coleman. I know I'm an Everton fan, I'm biased, but as it is the winter transfer market, he cost us £50,000 in 2009. He's gone on to make over 350 appearances. So just a quick hero worship for the winter transfer window.
All right. Well, that seems a very fitting way to end. Don't forget that the data that we discuss here on the Bet It Right show is at your fingertips at betitright.com. We'll be posting, I'm sure, a lot of bets on the BIR Insights Twitter page and indeed, as always, on the BIR Prompts page. But Dean, good to see you again. I hope you've enjoyed the winter break and now you're revved for the rest of the season with us here on the Bet It Right show. Absolutely. Best of luck to everybody for their bets, for their FPL, for everything else. Enjoy the Dorset Sea, and I will see you soon. See you next time, guys.